So great morning to all.
Good morning.
I'm extremely thankful to the esteemed and accomplished panelists for taking a time out of their schedules. Each of them has accomplished phenomenal greatness in their careers till now. And luckily, I've had the pleasure of working with each of them. So thank you to all of you. I'm also grateful to all the guests who are watching this panel discussion in a hybrid format. We've got over 150 online, and we've got close to 200 sitting in the auditorium watching this session out here. So thank you to each one of you. We are going to discuss a very important and relevant topic in relation to the hospitality industry today. It is about the hospitality industry bouncing back to pre-pandemic times or better when as the effects of COVID-19 spread across the entire world, prime focus for governments and businesses was the safety of their people. While this focus will continue, the implications for the economic growth and corporate profits have to lead to a sharp sell-off in the equity markets across the globe. We are proud to see that our hospitality and leisure partners, being the first ones that experience this extreme bad weather conditions, are moving quickly and remain focused to understand and quantify the operational and financial impact for their businesses. The impacts are huge and not yet completely predictable. Over 18 months into this pandemic, we still cannot predict what's going to happen next. On both revenue fronts, service fronts, cost fronts, and on supply chains. Decisions are being made to shut down hotels, restaurants, theme parks, and cinemas, not to mention the entire disruptive effect that it has had on the travel ecosystem, all having a significant impact on the worldwide tourism. As a team, operators and investors are trying to mitigate the cash and working capital issues and stay in close contact with their stakeholders. What's really encouraging and what I am personally proud of being part of this industry is our resilience and the fact that how this sector shows tremendous maturity in working together, showing true hospitality, holding each other's hands and helping everybody move forward. And there are many examples how the hospitality industry has stepped in to make a phenomenal difference to the world at large. From converting hotels into hospitals, becoming vaccination centers, and that list goes on. The situation we are in also brings in new business models and opportunities in defining, for instance, new delivery concepts, human capital sharing platforms, initiatives in promoting the staycation, the holy stay concept, and the use of the less productive time to work on activities that were normally pushed forward, like asset counts, security plans, defining standard operating procedures, and other planning tools that were there. The great news that we have today is that Asia is bouncing back. You see some great stories coming out of China, you see some great stories coming out of India, you see some phenomenal stories from Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and from Philippines. You see that travel to destinations has picked up. In fact, we'll hear from some of our leaders today how it is better than pre-pandemic times when it comes to AR and occupancy. And that brings us to the topic today. But let me now start introducing to the panelists today. We've got a couple of them joining in. They've had a couple of technical issues. They're just coming on, but let me introduce them all to you. I would like to first start with the ladies, and I want to wish both Megha, Janine, and all the ladies who are watching this a very happy International Hospitality Women's Day. The first time it was celebrated was yesterday, and I'm glad that we've got so many women leaders across. So a happy IHWD to all of you all. All right. So let's first talk about Janine. I've had the pleasure of working with Janine when we were at the Renaissance Mumbai and the Marriott Executive Apartments in Powai. She's a very agile leader. And she was very mean. She didn't send me a description, so I'm going to say what comes in my heart out here. Who lives her life for the day. And I personally have seen her handle extremely difficult union issues with a quiet smile. on her face. She's been so calm and composed when these issues have come across her. Hats off to you, girl, for that. From playing various senior leadership roles in Condé Nast, working with the Fairmont, she joined Marriott, and with Marriott, then she had a journey as director HR of the largest hotel cluster that we have in Powai. And from there, her ambitions and her natural flair for operations got her into operations, and she moved to Marriott Kochi as the director of operations there before taking on a current new role in the corporate world. So Janine, thank you very much and welcome to the panel. I know that she loves her two pups and loves traveling. All right. I'm going to move to our next panelist. We'll wait till Megha joins in before I introduce her. Elton Hurtis, a dear friend. Means Elton has seen me and I have seen him grow together with our fights across the pickup counter. You know, we've really seen how we both have matured and evolved over the years. Elton Hurtis is the general manager of the Courtyard by Marriott, Colombo. Elton has close to 25 years in the industry, including over 20 years with Marriott International, with most recently being the general manager of the Sheraton Hotel in Colombo. He was a pre-opening general manager at Veligama Bay Marriott Resort and Spa, where he oversaw the successful opening of the hotel. Its ramp up and integration. Elton played a very vital role establishing the Marriott brand in Sri Lanka. In fact, Elton is the Christopher Columbus for Marriott when it comes to Sri Lanka. You know, he went across out there and he put the Marriott flag, and I think Marriott is doing so well out there. Elton, congratulations and thank you for being with us today. Elton is a postgraduate medalist in hotel management from the Oberoi Center of Learning and Development, Delhi. Started his career as a chef. He has several operations and leadership positions in Marriott International in South Asia before his endeavor in Sri Lanka. In 2012, he was promoted to the general manager of the Courtyard by Marriott Bhopal. And I can tell you in those 4.5 years, he turned that hotel around. For those people who didn't know Bhopal, he put Bhopal on the map. Uh, his personality and work ethics can be described as hands-on, versatile, and with the eye for detail. His biggest strength, and knowing Elton close at heart and close as an individual, is building successful businesses. And what Elton kind of dwells on is, other than his business acumen, strategic acumen, Elton, I'm going a little bit off script, is his flair for technology. I have seen him bring in technology to many things. As a chef, I saw him bringing technology into how the recipes were utilized. So phenomenal stuff that he's done out there. And besides having solid ownership trust and delivering strong results for operating hotels, Elton and his team have had several firsts, such as a company's entry into Central India and Sri Lanka. He was recently named the best general manager at the World Luxury Hotel Awards 2018. He has won many accolades in the hotel industry during his tenure, and we wish him many more in the years to come. Um, we will now move to Vijayan. Dear friend, and we call each other brother. So brother Vijayan, welcome to the panel and thank you for being here today. Vijayan is an extremely experienced hotelier, and I remember the days when I used to be a director of food and beverage at JW Juhu. Vijayan used to be the director of food and beverage at Grand Hyatt. And never ever was it that while we were competing and we were competing hard, never ever was it that we never reached out and helped each other. So Vijayan, thank you for being a phenomenal human being that you are. Vijayan has now moved from hotel operations from his last role as a general manager with the Four Points, and then at the Courtyard by Marriott Bhopal. He's moved into managing hotels with Nile Hospitality. Basically, Nile Hospitality is a hotel management company that looks the overall looks at the complete thing, complete operations of a hotel, and Vijayan heads the food and beverage division. He has worked with major brands across India, which include the Oberoi, Leela, Hyatt, Starwood, and Marriott in various leadership roles. I'll introduce the other panelists, but before, I'm going to introduce somebody who's an international award winner to you right now, you know, and I've seen again, had the pleasure of working with Mr. Amit Kumar. He's been with the hospitality industry over 2 decades. worked with renowned brands like Marriott International and Whitbread International UK. He has had a phenomenal journey from the time that Amit and I worked together at JW Juhu. Uh, he, Under his leadership, Kotia Chakan has been decorated with the prestigious JW Marriott Junior Diversity and Inclusion Award, the Platinum Circle Award for 2018-2019, and Platinum Circle Award for the Courtyard brand globally. In addition, various leaders who have been working under Amit have got various recognitions. Um, it's a very interesting story that you'll hear from us. While a lot of destinations are still struggling, how Amit and his team have made a phenomenal growth story back at Kotia Chakan. Um, I'll quickly introduce Megha and Indranil as they join in. Let me get my notes out. So Megha Ajgaonkar, again, had the fortune to work with this fantastic personality and a sales leader that she is. We had the opportunity when we were together in Western Pune. Megha is the general manager sales at the Leela Palaces Hotels and Resorts. Leela, who was recently announced as the world's #1 brand by the Travel and Leisure Readers Survey US 2021. A graduate in hotel management from IHM Aurangabad and began a journey to the Taj Management Training Program with an industry experience spanning 2 decades, has worked in various brands including Taj, Starwood, and Marriott. A strong advocate for performance-driven culture, Megha is a recipient of multiple industry accolades from leading from the front and driving sales performance in her former roles. She is passionate about upskilling, talent, and building skills, sales expertise, and also a certified trainer. She has been instrumental in the successful opening of multiple luxury brands, including the JW Marriott Mumbai Sahar and positioning the Ritz-Carlton Pune. At the Leela Palaces Hotels and Resorts, she joins the corporate team to align and strengthen the organization to poise and enable sales to deliver the future growth of the company. Thank you, Megha. We look forward to you joining in quickly as the technical glitches get resolved. Our next panelist is Indranil Benedika. He's a seasoned commercial leader with over 2 decades of experience in the hospitality industry, spanning across India and Southeast Asia. Over the course of his career, Indranil has worked for brands such as Taj and Marriott and hotel ownership groups in conceptualizing strategic development. His forte lies in the new hotel openings, having played a critical role in the success of the iconic Manila Marriott Hotel and Convention Center. Trust me, it's a stunning property, and the Bangkok Marriott Hotels in Sukhumvit. In his current role, he's spearheading the commercial performance of the Marriott Hotels portfolio in Desaru Coast, one of Malaysia's halo tourism destinations. I had the opportunity when I started my career with Marriott to see Indranil in the events department and really kind of make that department super successful. So, I'm grateful that Indranil will be part of the panel today. Our last panelist is Shailendra Jindal. He's an entrepreneur. I first met him as a guest at the Bombay Baking Company, where we used to have a coffee together. He's been a serial entrepreneur for the last 2 decades, having done his MBA from New York in 2000. He started his corporate travel firm, one of the first corporate travel firms to start in India, focusing on accommodation and MICE. Shailendra brings a different perspective to this panel, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his thoughts. So to start off, if I could thank each of you to being part of the inaugural panel discussion of the Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management. As we term this, this is an hotel management institute by the hoteliers for the hoteliers. Our endeavor is to create a curriculum that is industry relevant, and each individual who passes out of the Hotel Management, Lexicon Hotel Management Institute is a day zero professional. So thank you to all of you. To start off, if I can, and since it was International Hospitality Women's Day yesterday, we'll start off with Janine today. Janine, if I can get your opening thoughts on the topic hospitality industry bounce back to pre-pandemic days or better, when and how.
So honestly, Nasir, I've thought about it quite a few times, and knowing that I left, but honestly, I left for a completely different reason, and it had nothing to do with the current state of hotels. And if I look at it, the hotel that I was at, Marriott Kochi, we actually thrived during this entire pandemic because we moved really fast. So I think it is imperative that hoteliers change course and direction, and there is always an alternative market available. We need to be able to change the way we think, and I think Marriott did that really fast. So there are segments out there. Work at hotels. People are looking for different options. Create and carve experiences, and people will come. Talk about Goa. Goa didn't even understand what the pandemic was. It hotels like our Marriott properties in Goa did far higher revenues in 2019 and 20 than they'd ever done before. So we kind of carve. If you are able to bring out that differential, I think we'll bounce back a lot faster. We need to break away from what was traditional hospitality. Glory days are there for us.
Thank you, Janina. It's so true. With the new normal coming in, we need to make the new normal even on the way that we work. And agility and speed, I think, are the key moving forward. Thank you, Janine, for your thoughts. Elton, if you'd like to go next with your thoughts on the same.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And Nasir, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'd just like to say hello to all the panelists. Pretty impressive panel, I must say, Nasir. Congratulations on that. And I'm also seeing that there are quite a few people attending the live event right now. It's close to 150 at the moment. So yes, coming to this opening statement question that you've poised. So this, I mean, we all know, and it's been said a million times that it was completely unprecedented. This was something that could never have prepared anyone. This happens once in 100 years, and I mean, history says that, right? So the last time we had something like this was the Spanish flu. So as you may not know, for the people listening, I am a part of South Asia, and this really includes India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and also the pearl of the Indian Ocean, which is Sri Lanka. So this is my forte. This is where I can really comment because I have been a part of a lot of conversations that are related to this part of the world. And I can say that recovery in India, because India forms probably, not probably, it does form the largest part of South Asia. And recovery in India has been really, really steady. There's been a decline in cases, and that is over the last 8 weeks is what we've been noticing. Now, when we go into more of the discussion, we will talk about that in detail. But as an introductory statement, I can tell you that and just not particular brand in India. I'm not really referring to just the Marriott. It could be the Hyatt. I mean, it is the ITC for that matter. We are noticing that tier 2 cities and resorts seem to be the first to shoot ahead of the pack. And when I say shoot ahead of the pack, I mean that occupancy levels have started to come back and come back with a bang. This has definitely seen benefits, but there is also excessive crowding issues. Like we, see in Goa, we see crowding issues in Missouri, in Shimla, and these have negative effects as well. So markets with a high dependency on international travel, like Bengaluru and Hyderabad, these are really taking their time in recovering. But having said that, the domestic market has started to render some relief. Markets in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, these are markets that continue to struggle, and this is primarily because of extended lockdowns. And when you have an unprecedented situation within an unprecedented situation, it just complicates the matter further. So, for example, in Sri Lanka, we have been having lockdowns extended every week, and this has been going on for the last 6 weeks. So we really do not know whether this lockdown will be extended beyond October 1st. So that's what I mean. When I say that these are extended lockdowns. For an inbound market like Sri Lanka, travel is a necessity. So until and unless you open up your airports for a tiny nation like this, which has a population of 2.2 crore or 22 million, it's never going to sort that issue out. But even if you fix, and this is what I want everyone to realize, that even if you fix the issue at home, until your source markets are sorted, until your source markets fix the issue, I mean, you're going to have ghost travelers,
So
right? You're
true.
going to still have empty planes. You're going to still have fuel prices rising, and eventually there will be a different type of collapse, most probably an economic collapse. And there always continues to be the next wave, that is like beckoning. It's going to be there, and there's rumors around this, and but we're starting to notice that our industry in particular is much better prepared, and from all aspects, and this is my opening statement, and I hope to continue this conversation further. Hi,
Thank
Megha.
you. Nitin. And I think you've put in such relevant points. It's just not about fixing home, but fixing where your guests come from, where our visitors come from, and especially in South Asia, where we've got so much travel. And when I say, like you said, when South Asia is just not about India, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh, or Philippines, Indonesia. It's about us fixing ourselves at home, but also fixing the markets being fixed out there, and companies allowing people to travel. And that's something that we'll get into when
Yeah,
the question comes up.
I'm looking
Uh,
forward to the conversation. And Nasir, I can see Megha.
we see Megha. Welcome, Megha. It's great to see you. Sorry for the technical issues that you had to encounter to come on board. Megha, I would love to hear your opening thoughts. And before you start, wishing you a very happy, the first International Hospitality Women's Day that was celebrated yesterday. So thank you for being a phenomenal leader. Megha, you're on mute. Would love to hear your opening thoughts.
Thank you, Nasir, and sorry for entering in style. The intent was not to do so, but nonetheless, so happened. And it's really great to see so many old friends back here on the screen. So, a very good morning to everybody and to all our listeners, students out there. I think. From an opening perspective, the thought process was to try and give a sense of how we've seen business recovery in the last 6 months, and it's been an interesting wave after wave after wave. I think post the first wave, from a hospitality standpoint, obviously the recovery was a slow progression, and we kind of started seeing things move back, at least in India. Pretty much by March, more or less the industry was almost inching close to 35 close resorts up to even 50 plus recovery of 2019, which was the pre-COVID performance. But I think it was the second wave that actually took everybody by surprise, and it was far more devastating. A lot of personal losses to many that happened, and kind of left the entire consumer sentiment in the shock zone as such. I was reading the other day, on ICRA, and I think from a recovery standpoint, primarily now because of the second wave, things have obviously kind of pushed back. The broad spectrum is that business recovery would only be seen by 2023, 24, coming back to literally pre-COVID levels. But that said, closer to home, the recovery that we saw, or the return that we saw post second wave, was definitely sharper than what we saw after the first wave, where it took about 4 to 5 months of business to start returning in different segments, but basically travel to start beginning. The second wave, actually, within a span of 3 months, sitting today, I can tell you for the last month, more or less, the industry almost has already crossed 50% of pre-COVID levels in terms of occupancy recovery at this stage. So in my view, I think the tunnel has just about got longer, but I still see light at the end of that tunnel, and I do want to stay very cautiously optimistic about the fact that economy does have the ability to ride back and bounce back, and I think we've successfully tided over the second wave. Consecutive waves, there are news around it, could happen, could not happen, but I strongly believe that successive waves will have a diminishing impact, a diminishing economic impact, as and when larger proportions of our population start to get vaccinated. So that is absolutely critical. That said, I know 18 months now into this, and I would maybe have to save and change my last name from an Ajgaon to a Jochi if I could, Nasir, give an idea on when business would return. It is going to be delayed and definitely flow into next year, potentially into 2023. That's how I would put it at this point in time from a recovery standpoint.
So true, Megha. But it kind of gives that optimism, where we look at, and you rightly use the word cautious optimism. I think that's something that we need to use. But I think the resilience that the hotel industry has is phenomenal. I kind of compare the hotels to surfers. That larger the wave, larger the resilience, and the way they ride it is phenomenal. So hats off to each of you. The way you have not only kind of handled the business, but at the same time manage what's going back at home, because we know it's not easy. Managing work, home, and our industry is a 24/7. If we could actually call it a 25/7, because you are actually thinking the next hour of the day sometimes. So thank you for your thoughts, Megha. Vijayan, if I may request you for your opening thoughts.
Anyway, very well said by Megha and Elton and Janin, of course. So I just wanted to add further on that I like the word being used as resilient and optimistic, because that is exactly what our industry is all about in India, South Asia as such. Because if you really see 2019, when everybody was very uncertain during the COVID time, lockdown time, and they were not sure how long this is going to start. But post October, November, things started picking up. At least I've seen in all our hotels. And then when post March, like Megha said, the second wave really came down crashing onto us, and that caused quite a bit of stress during the period of May, and I think to a little starting of June. But in a way, it's good that at least that total lockdown was not put in during the second phase, because I could see people still doing business in all the areas, whether it is in Maharashtra or in Gujarat or in Karnataka or in Rajasthan too. They were doing their business in a slow manner. But what really did not work was the corporates. Companies were still on work from home. And of course, IT industries immediately went into a shell, I would say, that they were doing all the business they needed, but they were all doing from home. So actually coming to work from home, that has actually created another set of business for the hotel industry. You could call it work from hotel, because they could be anywhere working. It does not say that you have to be at home, you have to be in an office. So that has also opened up a new set of business. I would say even a spiritual tourism has become a source of business for people have become more spiritual during this period, I feel. So, so I would say it's a pent-up energy that they have been storing in, and our wish to travel, especially Indians, has caused this to happen. In a way that most of the foreign markets are not open for us. So that has actually helped the Indian industry to.
All right. Now what do I do?
I've muted Shailendra. He's just joined in. So, Vijayan, over to you.
Yeah. So currently the foreign market is not open for tourism in many places as such. Even if you go to Bhutan, Nepal just opened yesterday or so, and Bhutan still says that you have to go for 2 weeks uh, quarantine. Maldives, it's become famous for all of Bollywood. So other than this belt, nobody really ventures out beyond. So I think once they open, then we will get to know all the leisure market that we have in our country. Will they remain within our country or will go beyond? I would like to end it.
Thank you, Vijayan. I had this fortune to call. And I say the word fortune because when I called up Amit that day, and I think this is approximately 3 weeks back, and he said, "Senior, I'll call you back later." I said, "Kya hua? What happened?" He said, "I'm sold out. I'm overbooked. I need to relocate people. I'll call you later." What a fantastic news that was. Considering how the industry has been, you call up and you hear, stuff and this. And then you've got this hotel in a micro market of Pune, Kotia Chakan, which had, if I'm not mistaken, I think 7 sold out nights in the last month or so. And Amit can ratify, increase, decrease that number. And so Amit, how does it feel? And would love to hear your opening thoughts. But also, how does it feel that you're amongst the few corporate hotels to have that luxury right now?
Yeah, I would say I would use the word blessed. Absolutely, kind of among this pandemic where everyone is struggling to be afloat. Luckily for us, being amidst the manufacturing industry, Fortunately, manufacturing cannot be done remotely sitting at home. So you got to be physically present over here. But the uh, it was definitely difficult after the first wave, because first wave saw very stringent restrictions being imposed for a very prolonged time, and then recovery started coming through in. And second wave, as everyone said, everyone has seen, came actually knocking on our doors. In some cases, came inside on our houses also. Was extremely devastating. However, the restrictions were not as stringent as what we saw in the first wave. So I guess that was a bit of the trigger point, and I think uh, government also realized that simultaneously the economy also has to kind of move in. Though there was selective movement happening, but definitely movement was happening, especially in this area of Chakan. A lot of backlog from the projects which were ongoing in 2019 and early 2020 came to a complete and sudden halt in the month of February 2020. So there was a lot of pile-on, a lot of backlog which was built up, which actually started kind of coming back after the second wave, when people had the opportunity to come in and park themselves in a hotel. And I would say that we at the hotel level, all the hard work that we had done during the lockdown, all the measures that we had taken to ensure to uplift our hygiene and sanitization standards, and change the way people would look. Simple thing, the 15 by 5 rule became 15 by 6 rule. We were very fast to implement that, and people saw that visible changes. That actually induced a lot of confidence in the travelers. Once they walked inside, they saw physical changes, and that's when we saw business actually coming back to a point. A lot of guests, who were from international destinations, they felt safe staying in India in our hotel, rather than going back to their country, which was badly hit by the wave. So I guess the agility which the hotel industry has shown, and as Elton said, we are one of the best prepared industries to tackle the COVID. We were complying with all the norms, local norms, international norms, everything. Especially Marriott as a brand, we have seen a complete shift from what it was, how it was, to a completely different thing, to increasing our checkpoints to over 210 touch points in the hotel, and sanitizing it on a daily basis. So I guess more than anything, it's an effort from each and every one, which everyone in our teams have put in to ensure that this thing happens, which induced a lot of confidence. And that is the reason why we, at least in Chakan, as a segment, we are seeing manufacturing segment bouncing back, and we are able to capitalize on that. Which I definitely feel, because right now the bounce back has been selective. It's a long project based movement, but the regular transient movement, the short stays, a night, 2 nights, which used to happen, that travel is yet to come back. So yes, but yes, having said that, I'm happy. I'm blessed to be in this part of the town, the city, the country, to be able to have that sort of a recovery back to, that is inducing a lot of confidence into the market and also the sister hotels around. So yes, happy to be in this spot.
So true, Amit. And like you say that, a smile brings a smile on the face of an individual that you smile at. I think positivity and some great news brings a smile to every one of the panelists and hoteliers who are listening to you, on the fact that it's a matter of time before we come back. And, you rightly mentioned about hygiene, cleanliness, and how the hotel industry really went above and beyond in making things happen. In recognition of that, just recently, with the culmination of the International Housekeepers Week, the Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management went and recognized and awarded certificates of recognitions to all the housekeeping teams that are there. Thank you for highlighting that aspect of housekeeping. But sometimes, just always are at the back, and I'm glad you brought that out. We've got Indranil all the way from Desaru, KL, Malaysia. Yeah, Indranil, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You've been an accomplished sales leader who's seen various markets, from those in India, Philippines, Thailand, and now in Malaysia. What are your thoughts, Indranil, on the same?
So we're talking about generally recovery, right, over the last 6 months. So
We're still in our opening statements about the bounce
right.
back.
Sorry. First of all, apologies for dialing in a bit late. Sorry, I was really grappling with this technical issue, so apologies. Thank you, Nasir, and thank you, Team Lexicon. It's an honor to be here today as a part of this panel. Today, we are here to discuss a very pertinent topic, right? That is recovery and future business outlook. And this question that has given the industry many sleepless nights. But I believe we are now at a stage where certain patterns and trends have emerged to guide us moving forward. And as most of the other co-panelists today are based in India, except Elton, of course, we will no doubt get some very good information on the domestic scenario from them. But as I'm based in Malaysia, I thought I'll take this opportunity to share some broader insights into how recovery cycles are panning across Asia. See, generally speaking, markets that have made rapid progress in vaccinating their populations have obviously seen better recoveries. With many international routes still closed, markets that have a robust domestic business are obviously also faring much better. And a great case in point, ironically, is China, where the pandemic started. But I think they were able to harness the domestic demand and bounce back pretty well. Here, I believe in India, we have a very strong opportunity in the short term. Now, when we look at South Asia, we look at Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Maldives. I think the caseload in the recent months has been contained fairly well, which is a good sign again. But having said that, I think here, especially here in India, I think there is a need for us to remain vigilant. I don't think we can afford to get complacent, but that is a good sign. Now, when I look at historical data, 60-day historical data and 30-day forward-looking booking pace, there are some really positive signs across APEC, not only India, but across APEC. The key indicator is how domestic airline capacities are picking up, how international flights are opening up. And on both these parameters, I think markets across Asia, main hubs across Asia are faring much better, which is a great sign. Coming again back to India, here again, I think we are seeing a big pickup in airline capacities, but more importantly, I think we are seeing a pickup in corporate business as well as retail business. Now, of course, this comes with a bit of a caveat, which we can discuss a little later, but I think these are good signs. Then looking further at our business, if we look at the segments that are really doing well or holding forth, obviously leisure stands out as a hero segment. We have seen not only in India, but across various tourism hubs in Asia. If you look at Phuket Sandbox experiment that happened a few months ago, we are now looking at Maldives was doing so fantastically well. Last week we have opened up Langkawi to tourism, and we are seeing that this segment is really doing well, and that is the indicator is very clear. There is a huge pent up demand. Traveling is never going to go out of fashion. People are waiting to travel. It is up to us how we are able to harness this demand, this pent up demand, and bring in the business by giving them this assurance that, hey, you're going to be in a safe and secure environment. So I think these are some really, really good signs. Having said that, it will not be business as usual. The way we do business has changed for good. And I think on the other side of the pandemic, we will all emerge. I think the industry will emerge much leaner, much more financially savvy, and a lot more resilient. I think the way we do business pre-pandemic and going forward, I think that there is a tectonic shift going forward. In summary, I would say over the last 6 months, we have seen positive news. There is more positive news than otherwise. There is reason to be optimistic. However, we are not out of the woods yet. I think we need to remain vigilant. The glass is half full. And I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm looking forward to the next 6-8 months with a lot of anticipation.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.
Thank you, Neil, for your thoughts. And like you said, we're not out of the woods. I'm an avid golfer, and one of the things that we talk about in golf is think about your next shot. Don't think about putting the ball into the hole. After you hit your first shot, you get to the ball, only think of the next shot. And I think that's where we are today. We need to keep on hitting straight. We need to keep on looking at the ball, which is the market at the moment, and evolving ourselves cautiously but optimistically.
Right.
Shailendra, if you could get your opening thoughts. You're on the other side of the industry where you are a provider to the businesses. You are constantly reaching out to hotels for business. How has life changed for you, and how do you see that moving forward?
Hello, everybody. This is Shailendra here. Thanks, Nasir, for this opportunity first. It's a pleasure to, address on this forum as well. So my belief is that the industry is it's going to come back very strongly. And I've been seeing a lot of undercurrents already. So I can give you a data statistics, in terms of revenues. What we did in the last quarter, that is April, May, June, the equivalent revenue we did in July, and what we did in July, we did 100% more in August, and what we are doing in August, September is even 100% over August. So I think it's ramping up very fast. All you need to know is, as one of our panelists said, you need to know the right place, the right strategy to this entire business. So you have to look out at pockets which are growing, which are resilient to the pandemic, and on the outcome of the pandemic, they are pretty uh, you know open to traveling after vaccination. So from the corporate travel side, what I believe is companies are opening up, they're planning rapidly. I think 2022 will be a pleasant surprise for most of us. I'm hopeful for that, and I don't see any more fear as such between the companies. I mean, people are also getting fearless, which is good and bad as well. But overall, I see it's an very interesting moment in my, at least in my career, because it's amazing. April, May, June is equal to July. July doubles August. August doubles September. So we can't wait for October. So that's the level at which, and I can also tell you we're almost hitting pre-pandemic level numbers already. So with travel yet to open up globally and MICE yet to start off in a full-fledged manner, we still, and at this current state, we are seeing that kind of numbers. So even average room rates in the metro cities still struggling to cross, let's say, 7.5, 8,000 in most of the hotels. Pune being an exception where they're holding on to prices, but otherwise, most of the, like Mumbai, Delhi, still, are in the same region of between 5 and 7 for most of the luxury hotels. So I think 2022 should be a pleasant surprise and a warm welcome for most people in the industry. And well, if the equity market does well, real estate does well, somewhere hospitality has to do well. Historically, that's been the trend. So that's my opinion and that's my view. Thank you,
Thanks,
Nasir.
Shailendra. Shailendra, may I request you to just stop sharing your screen? If you can just go onto the cross next to the mic and press that so we can just next to the camera. There's a mic. After the mic, there's a cross. Just press that, and it'll next one. Go right further.
Oh,
There's a cross out there.
oh, right, right. 1 second.
So, with that, thank you, Shailendra, for your thoughts. We'll move into the questions that are there. Some markets we have seen have evolved better and have done better than others, where, you see news of destinations doing extremely well. Megha, what's your thought on this evolution? How and why, as per you?
So I think you're bang on, right, Nasir? And the distinction has been pretty clear. I think the two segments, one that has shown itself as a new segment to us, and the other, which always was called the so-called resilient, pandemic-proof, recession-proof segment, MICE. I think these are the two segments of domestic leisure, which came in as surprise to us, and I think was an underestimated segment to a great extent for most of us hoteliers, whether they were city-located hotels or located in resort locations, and obviously socials and MICE. So when what we've seen, and obviously I come from Leela, which has a beautiful blend of portfolios in resort locations as well as city locations. My resorts today are technically already surpassing their pre-pandemic levels in terms of occupancy, doubled in terms of ADRs, which is fabulous news. And likewise, our city hotels, of course, is where it's been a slightly different story. So I think a lot is dependent on the segments that they would attract. Leisure destinations, which were initially very inbound dependent, though short term, but has seen a spurge coming in with the pent up demand of the domestic leisure customers, partly because the domestic clientele does not have the skies open to move out. So it's captive audiences sitting. And obviously, secondly, because a lot of trends of consumer change behavior, like drivecations, have kind of picked up steam. We look at a Gujarat market who's happily driving a 4-hour drive from an Ahmedabad to an Udaipur, and flooding the hotels in Udaipur today. So I think resorts as a destination and a location have really gained momentum. To some hotels, they've actually done better, and they would heart of hearts be I don't know, wishing for what in terms of COVID staying going, because from a revenue standpoint and a business standpoint, they're actually up the ante vis-a-vis pre-COVID. City hotels, however, because of their dependence on corporate business and that being a fair and substantial chunk of what they did, corporate as well as corporate-driven groups, MICE, etc., have taken more time to recover. It's also interesting to say that within city, I mean, Mumbai, for instance, there are segments which were never traditionally looked at by five-star luxury hotels, but there have been a tactical switch for many to just stay afloat, where they've actually dipped into segments which were never theirs. Maritime, for instance, has become a bread and butter business today in the airport hub of Mumbai, where all hotels are dipping into that business, which originally stood in 3 or 4 star hotels. So when you look at occupancies, even right now, Mumbai city as a market is driving occupancies now, which is almost inching to 70%, which
Wow.
is potentially pre-pandemic times if I look at just north. But the ADRs, the rates are getting heavily compressed because of the shift of segments in which the business is coming in. So from a demand perspective, there is businesses, the sources have changed, the hands have changed, the stress on pricing thereby has also changed. And I think that with now us seeing a lot of domestic business travel starting to return, and is going to now, shift the curve again for city hotels. So I feel very, very optimistic that city hotels will also start moving up. I'm a little wary, however, of the fact that the captive audiences, like I'm sure an Elton or a Ivy would be waiting for skies to open for Indians to start flooding in even more to them, that potentially could have an impact then on what currently the resort locations are capitalizing on, because obviously weddings will want to start looking at destinations out of India again, and so would the rich NRIs who've been saving up everything that they have to kind of go into the Antalias of the world, etc. So yeah, that's my viewpoint in terms of how distinct destinations are driving very different businesses. Some really soaring on rates, some compressed on rates, but I think demand-wise, it's a good story overall.
Thanks, Megha. In fact, I was trying to book Leela Jaipur for this weekend, and you would know it, but it's sold out. So, which is great to hear, and that's fantastic to
I
hear
hope
that.
you were offered alternate dates, Nasir.
I was. I was.
Fantastic.
CJ is a good friend, so he did. Um, Indranil and Elton, because you know how kind of Megha mentions it, you are in two markets which are very unique in its own way. Like Sri Lanka, has a good mix of corporate, but it's also primarily tourism that kind of comes into Sri Lanka beyond Colombo. And similarly, Indranil, for Malaysia. What are your thoughts? You know, either of you could go first. If Elton, I can request you to go first and share your thoughts on how Sri Lanka is, and then we can hear it from Indranil on Malaysia.
I was actually hoping for the man who is not aged to say something first.
Who's that? That's Nasser.
Indranil, you.
He's the moderator, no?
You give everyone a complex on this.
Come on. No, Nasser, are you speaking specifically in terms of corporate segment, or are you speaking in
Just overall,
general?
how is the market? How is the market doing there? Means, how do you see it
So
changing out
you
there?
you want to go first, or would you?
General managers first. So, so
Yeah.
Elton, go first.
So anyway, Nasser, in terms of what the hospitality industry needs to do I have a very strong opinion on something like this, and I'm pretty much sure that most industry leaders, or for that matter, people who are involved in the strategy that involves the bounce back. You all agree that there has to be a plan. You can't really enter into a storm that's fading without a plan. And there's a very good example of what's happening in the Middle East, and that is not got anything to do with hospitality. If you understand what I mean. But there are a couple of things, that I believe that we need to do as industries. I've coined this to form a word called solar, SOLAR, and this basically comes, to me because the sun, it gives us energy, and that's where the solar power really goes into this mix. So I believe the S stands for the speed in which we react as an industry. Timely level. I mean, we have to be essentially extremely timely in how we react, and opportunities will come our way. But if we're going to be in relaxed mode, then we're going to miss the bus here. The O in solar stands for Mega clearly said, and I think even Indra mentioned that you need to be optimistic. You really need to let bygones be bygones and be carefully optimistic about how the future is going to pan out. You need to think local. Mega mentioned that. Maritime was not an industry that we ever bothered about, but again, when I say local, Nasir, when you and I were both in food and beverage and we wanted to do home deliveries, we were told no. Today, today that has actually turned out to be a savior, correct, for the industry. And somebody again said people need to stay afloat, correct. The A in solar stands for, actually it's a double-edged meaning. It's adaptive and accessible at all times. And the sales leaders here who have got immense experience will understand this when I say that no matter what you do, when times are difficult, if you're going to turn around and say, hey, listen, I only work from 9 to 6, it's going to become a bit difficult. Accessibility, getting that early bird, getting that worm is going to matter. You need to adapt. Adaptive is a better word for being flexible. Flexible could also mean bending backwards and forwards, but adaptive is actually, if you see the definition, actually means understanding the needs and catering to it, right? And finally, we need to be realistic. You can't say that you're going to boom and bounce, and so like our SMART goals, it's specific, measurable, realistic, achievable, and time bound. Just be very realistic. So remain relevant with what is the need of the hour from a service delivery perspective. And don't forget, and it's not because I am from operations I'm saying this. Operations is going to be the backbone of this recovery. Your sanitation protocols, just make sure these things are in place. Use this time to enhance the digital aspect of your business. You can't, if you've not done it, forget it. Your competition has already moved ahead of you. Focus on your people, focus on the well-being of our associates. Don't forget that these people have also gone through a lot of personal as well as professional losses. We need to have talent-ready bells available. Once everything comes back, we need to be at that start line to bolt out like Usain Bolt. And guess what? A whole new type of customers coming our way. This is a new animal, and they're coming with a completely new mindset. In the past, these people were impressed with us wearing gloves and having us sanitized tabletops. Today, they know what is required as a mandate. So that is not going to impress them. That has now become the basis of our necessities, right? And alternate revenue streams, food and beverage, married bongo on wheels, home delivery, opening these cloud kitchens. All these things will eventually matter. And I will pass it over to Indra now.
So I completely agree with what Elton said. In fact, he touched upon some very, very pertinent points. See, but before I come to that, Nasir, to your earlier question about how is business generally in the rest of Asia or specifically to Malaysia, I think the trends are similar to what Megha mentioned earlier. I think there are city hotels are hurting and they will hurt. There are a lot of hotels that are closed for 6, 8 months, and that's generally a bad situation, especially with corporate travel
Right.
coming to a complete standstill. Having said that, Malaysia also has several leisure destinations. Look at Langkawi. I mean, it's really doing very, very well. Desaru, which is one of my portfolio hotels. So leisure hotels will do well because, especially the motorable ones, where people can quickly drive to in 2 hours, they will do well. There is pent up demand. So I think there are opportunities. Malaysia is also slowly opening up. I think they're lifting the curb. So the next few months look generally very good. A little worried about Singapore cases going up a little bit, which it is a big source market. But I think on the whole there is optimism. Coming back to how we are going to deal with business going forward, I completely agree with the digital part which Elton mentioned earlier. See, when we talk about recovery, I think companies and brands that are going to adopt technology, and I'm not, it's an old cliche, but again, I'm going to say it. People who are going to adopt digitalization and technology have a much better chance of surviving this whole,
Right.
chaos in the market. And unless you're prepared to do that, unless you're able to do that, frankly, it's not going to be business as usual. Things are changing. Hotels will have to, traditional look outside of the traditional formula. A new template will emerge. It will not be business as usual. You all have rightly said that, look, we are looking at segments which we used to earlier scoff at, right? Who does delivery from a JW Mumbai, right? We are a Halo hotel. I remember there are big five-star upper upscale luxury hotels who would never consider an airline crew. I remember those days. Even if it made revenue management sense because it gives you a base business, just the thought of having an airline crew in the hotel was not something most owners and GMs were comfortable with. I think those days are behind us. We have to be realistic, as Ayrton mentioned. And generally, yes, be nimble, be very, very, be prepared to do things differently. And as I mentioned, on the other side of the pandemic, we will all become much more financial savvy. And I would just like to conclude this particular point by making one observation. See, when we talk about recovery, it's a very broad term. Recovery, what is recovery? Pre-COVID-19, yeah, sure. Are you talking about occupancy? Are you talking about RevPAR? And typically, what happens is most hoteliers, we are so programmed to think RevPAR, but I think we have to go a step forward and think, is it net operating profit per available room? Are we thinking about the owner's stake in this? Are we really looking at NOP part? Because that is where your ancillary revenue streams start coming in, and that's where your managers start thinking about ancillary revenue streams. Is my laundry priced right? Is my room service priced right? Is there a parking as a revenue stream? Those are the kind of things that we now have to start, because it's not going to purely remain at a ref par level, but we have to measure ourselves against NOP par. And unless we look at that metric, I think we will be living in a fool's paradise. So when we think of comparing ourselves back to 2019, guys, I would leave you all with the thought that, hey, look, let's look at what profit lines we were delivering. Let's allow for inflation and then see where we need to get back. And probably then 2023 is not realistic. Maybe it will take another year for us. So that's my thought on how we need to navigate the oncoming quarters.
So true.
Nasir, I want to add to what Indranil just said, and it is amazing how the sales leaders, and I can't say of the future because he is really the future. He's the present, he's the past, and so is Mega for that matter. Thinking about the owner, thinking about what you finally bank, that is such a relevant point. And I
So
think
true.
everyone, well, maybe there might be more genius comments coming or points coming, but I think this one is going to take the show today. Uh, uh, you know,
I think you're bang on, both Elton and Indra. I think in the end, the owner sentiment is very critical. And I remember, when I was in one of the hotels in my time, and that's what I used to look as a general manager. And Indranil used
right.
to be the area director, sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And yes, RevPAR was important to me, but I went on and fought with GMs who were and did business in their cities. In Chennai, in Mumbai, from Pune, and
Yes.
they say, "How are you coming into my market?" And I think that's what's important. Like, if you think as an owner, is when you will be able to then look after the owner.
Yeah,
Moving
ownership. Right, absolutely right.
on. True.
Great
Uh,
point.
Janine, the next questions to you. What changes need to be made at the institute level for students to be better equipped to handle the new normal? And Amit, I'm going to ask you the same questions. If you could just take the time to put your thoughts together on that. Janine, over to you.
So, Nasir, what we heard over the last maybe half an hour of leaders talking about trends, and I think that's the important part that needs to be incorporated in syllabus. What Indranil spoke about, how do I price my laundry? How do I price my in-room dining? How do I look at profitability? These aspects of being a business leader are extremely relevant today.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one aspect to add on. I never thought as an operations leader I would need to worry about cash flow. And that was the finance guy's headache. And then I realized a lot of the decisions that we were taking based on rates, based on what kind of business we were looking at. I remember fighting with my GM saying, I don't want to take a maritime crew because it's extremely expensive. My profitability is taken a hit. And he said, okay, let me explain to you cash flow that's going to help get us through these next 2 months and pay us our salaries and just get the business to carry on, bide this time to get us to stay afloat. And that was a new thinking. It was a new concept. It's not always profitability that we can look at. Cash flow is equally important at this stage for us to focus on. And I think that aspect needs to be brought into the minds of students who are coming out. They're going to be business leaders. They're not just in the service delivery business, but they're business leaders delivering service. So that one aspect I think is extremely important. I think another aspect is how to curate experiences based on individual experiences. Today, we spoke about a lot of different aspects of how recovery is happening. And these are specifically hotels that started offering what the market really wanted and then customize that based on the guest that was walking in. I look at it to say is, we brought in high tea experiences. We brought in something at the Marriott called Kochi Le Kochi, bringing Fort Kochi to the city. So we were a city hotel that was trying to behave like a resort hotel and bring in aspects of heritage culture into the realms of how we operate. And that to me is thinking differently. So how
Right.
do we look at our traditional offerings as hoteliers and how do we bring in elements of customization? Wedding packages, previously we looked at as hoteliers, we were just the food and beverage providers and the location providers. Suddenly we started getting into decor. We started getting into giveaway gifts, the invites, the entire entertainment. The simple piece of mice exploded into an entire experience. And that was the critical factor for us to be able to drive experience to the hotels. Similar to food and beverage, if I look at Marriott on Wheels, it was not about just delivering food home. It was how can I create an experience around a brunch coming home to you? So that understanding of what are luxury experiences, how do we differentiate these experiences to bring in and attract different market segments? So it was one we were talking about families. You were also talking about corporates. We went out and we had offerings catered for just big corporates who wanted to do something wow and fantastic for their employees. So being able to be agile in your experience offerings was extremely important. And I think these two elements, if apart from business as usual, which you already incorporate, these two elements is something that I believe will make that difference for the young generation coming out.
Thanks, Jay.
Over to
Amit,
you.
your thoughts on the same?
I completely agree with what Janine covered. I guess, the traditional way, a lot of institutes used to offer was a theoretical, uh, you know, industry-based information which used to be given and industry-based skills which needs to be given. I mean, I remember my times. We used to be very specific, chapter by chapter, department by department. These are the technical skills that you are taught, but no one really ever taught us any sort of a skills apart from the deliverable skills. And the whole pandemic has seen everyone, I guess, you know, I won't be wrong if I say that whole pandemic has beaten every one of us down and made the stronger us, the stronger me within come out. Everyone has had a different perspective. Everyone has made that small or large change in the way they think. Their perspective have changed completely, and as an industry also we have made a complete paradigm shift from what we used to think, for how we used to deliver. You know, uh, biggest example is guests were not able to come out, so we had to get into their houses. So these are skills, this is agility, these are leadership skills. So I guess institutes should take the real life crisis as an example and start inculcating skills. A very big thing like how to be emotionally strong. Had
True.
we not been emotionally strong, we were all beaten down to the lowest low in our lives. Everyone has been through it, but everyone rose up. Had we not been emotionally strong, we wouldn't have been able to think beyond. I know we were laying down for some time, but of course after that we all stood up. We all foresightedness is what brought us out, and we took so many small little changes, small little steps, which kept us afloat, only to be able to bounce back when the times change. Had we not been afloat, we will never be able to bounce back. So a lot of skills with relating to agility, leadership, adaptability, you know, that needs to be inculcated and amalgamated with the core skill of hospitality. That is what will make better leaders tomorrow. That is what will bring out the real strong persona in them.
Thank you, Amit and Janine. I think bang on. And you'll be happy to know that, Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management, what it's done is it's brought in an advisory council of senior leaders across the globe to actually put the insights into what the curriculum should be. There is some things that need to be taught from a degree perspective, but our whole aim is when our students pass out, they are day zero professionals. And emotional intelligence and memory techniques,
Yeah.
along with neuro-linguistic programming, is a complete subject by itself, which will have around 60 hours of training out there. And I'll just come to you. Yeah, we've looked at making the curriculum completely from that basis, and I'll be happy to kind of in fact reach out to you all, get your insights also on the same. Elton, yes, please.
Yeah, again, very, very valid points, and I'm sorry I'm jumping in again, but
No, no, please,
you
please.
know me, right? That's my nature. I can't really hold back if I on something.
Don't.
And that's the whole point of this conversation. I think it's participativeness. So a couple of things that Amit said and even Janine said. It all boils down to the fact that colleges need to adopt to the universities or the US, the UK, the Canadian universities, their style of teaching, which actually focuses on case studies as a big part of their curriculum. A lot of case studies comes into play where kids and children are actually given real life examples of how things pan out. And not necessarily the same application will work every time, but it's a good way to prepare. But what you said, Nasser, is what actually got me jumping off my seat immediately. Now I want you to imagine, okay, and you have the power to do this. I want you to imagine people or children coming out of your institute who don't need to be trained. They just come on the job and they start taking check-ins. They just come on the job and they start making beds. They just come and they start working on the line, right? That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to point out is that in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, and this is something that I'm going to be testing with my cluster head of HR, is where we're going to have temporary workers, like in the US, like in Australia, where we pay them part time, but these are children and from catering colleges.
Right.
We all owe this to the industry. So I
True.
believe that if first year spend some time every fortnight in the industry, and he actually learns to cook the line. And we as leaders should take the responsibility to ensure that these children, and I say children because they are children,
Yeah,
you
they
know,
are.
Yeah,
don't
true.
know
Right.
how stressed they are when they come in as industrial trainees. We need to create this protective shield around them, without creating that halo effect.
True.
And I'll leave it at that. these are
Thank you. It's very, very relevant, very important points. Vijan, thank you for being patient out there till I reached out to you. Vijan, in the role that you are now in, the industry, there are two elements that you really need to look at. One is how are you evolving the food and beverage in your various hotels, plus the owner sentiment. So, how do you see food and beverage evolving? That's question one. And question two is how is the signings of new hotels happening?
Okay, thank you uh, for the opportunity. What I would say, the food and beverage industry has really totally evolved after this. As Janine had specifically mentioned, and even Shailendra has mentioned, Marriott on Wheels has come. So, home delivery of food has become a key issue, has become a key challenge for the hotels within the hotel, I would say, because a guest need not come to the hotel, which becomes a greater opportunity for the hotels to upsell much better than when they are in a room or in their accommodation where they order, where they specifically know what exactly they want. So, because they are not in front. So, I would say the home delivery has become a competition for the hotels themselves, number one.
True.
Number two, the what you call freestanding restaurants are still not bounced back to that level because the investment part last 2 years has been very skeptical for the owners to invest or to decide what is to be done. So they are also opening in a very slow manner to know, they just want to probe and see what works, what doesn't work. So
True.
whatever has opened really has done well for themselves. So I would say the hotels will move into more closely like a coffee shop concept, which is again um, a multi-cuisine a buffet restaurant would always be there in all the hotels. And secondly, what I also see is that they've come up with a new concept called cafes. These
Right.
cafes are small bites. These are low priced bites. So this is attracting a different segment, youngsters, to wean away crowd from hotels like, I mean, restaurants like KFC or Pizza Hut or any of these. I mean, I know it sounds funny, but this has become a segment in many of the hotels that I've seen. They call it cafe. Many of the owners we discuss with, so they have a different all-day dining concept, and they want us to work on a different cafe concept. These are in small portions, lesser priced, but presented like a five-star hotel. So that is a difference that they're going to create
Great.
for people trying to wean them away from these smaller places. But unless there is a touristic what do you call push in these areas. Otherwise, many of the others like restaurants, different restaurants would all become reduced in due course. They will open them. Many of them will open only for dinner, may not open for lunch. You will find many of them opening just for late nights, depending on the type of clientele that they have within them. So what I have seen also is that having so many restaurants is much more costlier for an owner than having
True.
one all-day dining restaurant, which is huge, creating segments like how you have in Singapore mezzanine uh, or Straits Kitchen. You have different segments in them.
Or the
So I
line in
think that.
Shangri-La. No,
Hello.
no, please. Please, Vijan.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so that is going to be a key trend in the future that I've seen in most of the hotels that we are designing as such. So when it comes to signing of brands, it's a huge market now. All the hotels, let me tell you, opening now are those which were supposed to open in 19 and towards 20 beginning. So these are the new, not the new signings. But what actually has supported the hotels is the rebranding that is happening. Because of COVID, many of them feel that their survivability will depend on which brand they align with because brands have a very powerful pull in the market. So I think rebranding would come in two ways. One is management and two is franchise. Either ways, rebranding has become a key issue or a key push in that segment. So you will see a lot of hotels opening up. They would be going for brands either to manage, like even for us, we have seen so many hotels signing up in the last 6 months, ready to sign up with us in the last 6 months, that I can see what their apprehensions are. They've already invested and they want somebody to take care of their hotels. So either they go
Right.
for franchise or they go for franchise where both it's a win-win situation for both. And we come into play even for franchise hotels, we come into play even for non-branded hotels. So there are so many such companies which have sprung up in the market, and you will see that that is going to be the trend for the future for all the owners, that they will have two brands supporting them.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Vijay, and your thoughts. MICE was a huge segment for hotels. How do we see this segment evolving in the near future? Shailendra, if I can have your thoughts first, followed by Megha for your thoughts on the same.
Yeah, hi. Well, I think the trend should continue because most corporates would like to do employee engagements and customer engagements. So there is no
Right.
way, through digital medium you can engage beyond a point, and there's no personal connect. So in my opinion, like again, I go by data and statistics. Last week we got about 40 inquiries for only mice, which is over the next
Wow.
30 days. So before last week, it was 2 inquiries a week. So I'm sure there is a rush, there is a need, and also there is a value in doing personal engagement with customers and employees who are internal customers. So I don't think mice is going out of the window, or a digital platform can replace that. I just feel that they're going to be a little more innovative. The type of mice would change. It might not be conventionally to Goa, because Goa is a little outpriced when it comes to mice in the current market, because the retail demand is so high. And it might take a shift to other markets, which is good, because newer terrains will be discovered by corporates. So I feel there'll be a good distribution of business in, I won't say tier two, but in hotels or in regions which are not usually popular, and people
Right.
also want change. So given the budget constraints can play a key role, as well as need for change can play the second best role. So I feel that all the offbeat locations are going to continue to thrive. Major MICE destinations, which are like Udaipur, Goa, clubbed with wedding destinations, are going to be high yielders. I know the people who can afford a larger, who have a bigger wallet, can go to those destinations. However, newer hotels are coming and they're giving a good value deals, but still, I feel the average ADRs are going to be higher in these locations. So MICE is there. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I just feel in a phased manner it's going to come in, but it's definitely coming in. That's about it.
Right. Megha, your thoughts?
So I would second Shailendra to a great extent, and I think yes, COVID has brought about certain shifts in terms of there are corporates who've seen the value, whether it is yes adding to their cost lines, or rather helping them diminish their cost lines further with hybrid and virtual meetings coming in. So I think a lot of that play that COVID has taught a lot of our clients and customers and ourselves. I personally feel that it is going to continue to certain levels, but yes, it cannot replace the need of personal connect and personal networking. So for future, yes, hybrid virtual meetings will continue. Smaller levels will continue. The graph will continue diminishing downwards. But that said, I think the positive impact of the COVID vaccination rollout, and I do keep repeating this because we see an absolute direct correlation in sentiment change as and when we progressively move in the vaccination space. And I think MICE as a segment again is a direct correlation with the way vaccinations have moved in order for confidence to start building in rising of physical conventions and exhibitions. I mean, I think last year, 2020, the MICE business had slashed down to almost 80-90% down vis-a-vis what historically would happen with maybe just spurts of socials, etc., that were coming in. But immediately after the second wave, months of end July, August, September, we've seen a massive improvement in MICE queries in the month, shorter lead times, whether it is corporate offsites or even larger events. I mean, look at Bangalore. Bangalore just a couple of weeks back finished the Gems and Jewelry Expo, which traditionally happened in Mumbai, went into Bangalore this time around, close to 20,000 delegates in the city, generating close to 5 to 7,000 room nights in the city. So events like these are coming back. We're looking at the next year calendar where there are medical conferences returning, there are defense conferences returning. So a lot of these segments are very exciting stories for us as hoteliers and salespeople to see come back within the within the country, which is volume based. But that said, I think there will be return. Again, as a segment, the volumes would reduce. The number of events slowly and steadily, I think, will come back very quickly next year. And if we are not able to get back to our 2019 levels, it will primarily get attributed simply because of the size of the events getting reduced. The other bit that Shailendra did touch upon, and I would definitely not miss, is we used to saying it MICE, but I strongly feel that it's MICE W at the end of the day. You know, the acronym of MICE with the W in it, which is weddings, has become so critical. I mentioned this before, a recession-proof space has been a critical savior for our industry, I think, during the COVID times. And again, the interesting bit around the wedding formats have been that they've just gotten so much more experiential, so much more intimate, a lot to do with, you know, again, capacity restrictions, but that has still not stopped the segment in producing for us. In fact, destination weddings grew stronger than ever. The appreciation for our own country, in a way, I think came in a lot more because of the captive opportunity that we had. And now that a lot of our planners have experienced the beautiful opportunities within country, I do feel that even if skies do open, yes, there would be business that would move out, but when it will come to weddings, there will still be a fair amount of opportunity that will continue sustaining, because this period has helped India position itself beautifully in terms of how intimate, weddings can be held in unique destinations within the country as well. So I think MICE, from a return standpoint, as a segment, if I was to put it in pegging order, I would say domestic leisure will continue in itself. Domestic business has already started coming in as well. MICE and international business travel would potentially then fall suit as well. So pretty much last in the pegging order, but certain segments within MICE already kicking in, have been kicking in, and will continue to.
So true, Megha. And there's something which is very important that you mentioned in the beginning of the your conversation, which was vaccination. And it's amazing how the Leelas, and I saw that went about vaccinating all its staff way ahead. And I think it's 100%. Similarly with Marriott, we saw a lot of focus on the vaccination of the staff happening out there, which kind of puts in the confidence into the customers, saying that we really care. Not only do we care for them as customers, but we care for our own team. And I think that's so critical, because only when we can care for ourselves are we able to take our care beyond boundaries. If in one line, each of you has to describe what the owner sentiment today is, how would you go about it? Vijayan, we'll start with you and we'll go left to right. So Vijayan, in one line, the owner sentiment. You're muted, Vijayan.
The owners are very optimistic that things are going to change. It's just lack of labor to get work done is the delay, I feel.
Indra?
And they will definitely look at expanding their horizon. Many of our owners are planning at building at least 6 other hotels each. So you can imagine.
That's awesome to hear from the optimism that sits out there.
Because if you start building now, it will take 2 to 3 years. So by then the market is anyway, like what Megha said, 22, 23, 24. We have reached that stage. So for them, that's the best time. India will come back to what it was pre-COVID.
Right. Indra?
Nasir, I'm conscious of the time, but I'll still nonetheless take one quick minute because this is an important topic pertaining to the owners. See, I feel that the owners have gone through a lot of difficult time in the last 2 years, but let bygone be bygones. Going forward, I feel they're going to look at the business template very, very differently. I think we will see a lot more mixed use development coming into the country, because I think it just gives them a great opportunity to optimize the land as well as FSI. I think it helps them to hedge their risk across different asset classes. I think Hotels, nonetheless, will continue to be a favored asset class from an ownership perspective. I also feel the owner-operator relationship is going through a bit of a change. Going forward, I feel the way management contracts are written are going to significantly change. I think there are a lot of clauses I feel that the owners are going to get very pushy about. I feel the baseline management fee might come under pressure. I think they'll be happy to incentivize. The incentive management fee will come in more. I think they'll want more control over FF&E reserves. I think they'll want some changes to the provisions of your insurance clause. So I think that there is a lot that is going to change going forward. I do acknowledge that the owners are going to be backing the hotel as an asset class, but I think the template is going to change. And I think Vijan already mentioned some points earlier whereby some of the restaurants could be outsourced. So I think a lot of change is coming our way. I think we should all be prepared for that.
I think it's important to recognize that aspect,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Elton, as a general manager, you've during this pandemic, you've kind of worked on two pre-openings. So that means your engagement with the owners has been extremely strong, and there has been a lot of engagement, I assume, with this whole journey that's been there. What, as per you, is the owner sentiment currently, Elton? You're on mute, Elton.
Nasir, just like Indraneel, I will need a little more time. I know we're
absolutely
pressed for time, but this is a very, very touchy topic for everyone. Okay, and this is an extremely difficult question to answer. Now, and to put I'm going to try to put this into perspective. Okay, so this is very unique for every individual, and let's not forget that just like us, owners are also humans, human beings.
Right.
They have emotions. They have been through a similar level of stress, if not more like us. Some of them have even lost their loved ones. In some cases, some of our owners didn't make it. No matter all the money in the world, couldn't save your life, right? So it has been an extremely tragic time for everyone, and it would be very unfair to draw a comparison. From a financial standing, I have to say that things have been just to say that things are difficult, I think is a gross understatement. So just like Indraneel said, just like Vijay also mentioned, we need to brace ourselves, because why does someone put their, and I've been saying this from my early days, it's been 25 years since I've saying this, that why do we start a business? The purpose of a business is to make profit. So at some point, you need to cut the chase, and you need to cut out the emotional aspect out of it. And owners have learned that. The ones who have toed along the emotional line have lost, but they have gained in karma. For those who believe in karma, they have gained immensely in karma. This was a great time to do good. This is a great time to also protect your assets for a future moment where you can do good. So it is very unfair to judge somebody just because that person pulled the plug early. And in my case, this is happening. That person has kind of built a reservoir around themselves for the future.
Right.
So time will tell. But at the end of the day, let's not mix things up, guys. A business is started to do profit.
Right.
And that is the takeaway from this.
Thank you, Elton, and well said, Elton. Very well said. Amit, I know what a phenomenal owner you have from a owner perspective as a hotel owner that you have out there. Could you share your thoughts on owner sentiment? Because I know he's somebody with a huge heart, and having been a part of his family through being at Untitled Chapter. What are sentiments in general from your perspective as a general manager and ownership?
See, as everyone said that, even owners have gone through a lot, both at a personal and professional, financial levels also. And as you said, our owners have, he has a golden heart, definitely. And trust me, through the pandemic also, through the tough times also, he stood by us. He did not kind of, lose hope in us. He did not lose confidence in us. There was not even a single day, or rather never we reached a point where he said, what, I'm going to take the reins in my hand. I want to control the whole show. He showed that confidence, and of course, I also felt that responsibility to reciprocate in the same way. We did everything at our end to keep the ship afloat. To proactively, we got into a lot acute cost savings, and in the first wave we shut down the hotel. We didn't see the business coming down, so we shut down the hotel for a span of good 3 months. And the minute we saw little ray of hope coming back to us, we opened it. You know, of course, with the understanding that business is not going to come back instantly. It will take time, but at every small step that we took towards business or towards sustenance of the whole thing, he stood by us. He had that confidence, he had that support. So I guess as an owner, this gentleman has definitely set a true example of being a business partner. Never kind of jumping over to come on to the other side and showing that what, I am more skilled or better skilled than you to run the show in this crisis. He knew, he was very and cognizant of the situation going on, very understanding. Never once also was unnecessary or unrealistic pressure coming from their side as well. So I would say, especially this particular gentleman has shown a lot of resilience, a lot of confidence, which in fact boosted a lot of confidence in us also to bounce back. And at that time, as I said earlier also, we took drastic steps to keep afloat, and that was the only reason why we were able to bounce back at the first opportunity what we got.
And hats off to Shakil for that, and Amit, to you. I see, I can see your cautiousness, and I can see your love for the hotel with the fact that and everything that you've done for your team, and being in Pune, you hear stories and you listen to them, and thank you for making a difference. Megha, from your perspective, you are meeting there's the hotel, a lot of the hotels are owned by you as a company, but you also manage hotels for others, where as a sales leader, I'm sure there are constant questions to you that are coming. There's a high engagement with the owners. What are your thoughts on the owner sentiment?
So I think Nasir, everything that everybody has spoken pretty much needs to be echoed through, and what we have definitely seen with especially the managed portfolio that we have. Of course, what we're owning, there's a huge backing that comes in from Brookfield. In fact, for our owned assets currently, those being resorts have seen a rebound like how. But at the same time, there are some very strong investments back going. We're taking this downtime as opportunity to upgrade a lot of our opportunities, not just from a product standpoint, but even further enhancing getting palace experiences on board and stuff like that. And for our managed portfolio, our owners are obviously noticing it. There is a reason why, as a brand, we've been, I guess, the only who've opened 3 hotels within this time period, starting with the Leela Palace in Jaipur, and then very quickly in the past 45 days, we've had Gandhinagar, as well as then the Bhartiya City has also now in Bangalore got Leela opening itself. And when we discuss with the Garud, who are our ownership in Gandhinagar, or we speak to Jaideep or Mr. Agarwal, who are managing Bhartiya City, I think the sentiment, and I heard the word of confidence as partners, has been exceptionally good. They understand the realities of business. They at the same time have entrusted with us managing their asset, because they feel confident that we will draw the right blend towards the tactical strategies that potentially need to be drawn today, but the end goal in mind being the positioning the way they want their hotel to be. So from a seller's perspective, yes, it's a fine balance, because we do not know when the grass is going to start growing superbly green again for us to, tip the turf. So those roads are to be sensitively managed, but they've held hands throughout the way. In fact, we've leveraged from their relationships. Bharti City is a classic example where my general manager Ruben out there, along with the sales team, work very very closely with Jaideep, who represents from an ownership standpoint, and we leverage off each other, and that's I think the true indication of partnership in saying yes. Leela's managing the asset, we might be owning the asset, but together we need to make that asset stand out and the voice be heard by all, especially when it's a new opening hotel. So I think we've had a touchwood a very very good equation from that standpoint with all our ownerships. Fingers crossed, whether it's Goa, Gurgaon, and Shahadra in East Delhi, and of course the two new open hotels very recently.
Thank you. Janine, from your perspective, and Shailendra, from your perspective, as consumers, as now customers, Shailendra has always been on that side. Janine, you've just now moved on that side as a customer. What are your thoughts in terms of expectations that you have very quickly on hotels?
So before we get into that, I'd still like to chip into the ownership piece, Nasir. And I think blessed that I come from one of the hotels that has the best owners ever. And I'll categorize as to why I'm saying that. Yes, they were commercially a lot more savvy about how to run a hotel, but they became collaborative and they vested in revenue earnings potential for the hotel. We partnered with Lulu International, and again, this was both Marriott and Grand Hyatt, where we had actual alternative revenue streams linked to ownership. So they launched an entire loyalty program with Lulu International and added benefits of Marriott and Grand Hyatt onto that. That simply and became the best loyalty program for Kochi and for the UAE market, which was big for us. So
Right.
they actually partnered, brought in their expertise, partnered with us to become more revenue effective. So that was one piece that I wanted to bring in. When you have an owner who uses their strength commercially to boost you and your business, that's the best equation you could have. Now, moving on to the other front, I can tell you all from the corporate side, travel has been encouraged. All travel bans have been lifted. We've actually got that notification, so I thought I'll give you the good news on the last note. But I saw it and I said, fantastic, only for vaccinated people. But I think the sentiment is there. If I give you the sentiment that's there on the corporate side, people are itching to go out and travel again. They're itching to meet up. So, Megha, to your point, will there be corporate events? Most definitely there will. One of the biggest factors for attrition in our industry currently, which is soaring at 35%, is the simple fact that we're not able to meet people. And that's going to be a huge agenda for us in the next year and a half. How can we bring out a lot of siloed small events which are secure, which will offer a lot of one package deal? So we
Right.
don't want to go out there and have a vendor that brings in the expertise. We don't want someone to come in for team building. We want a one-stop shop. We want to interact with one person who will give us a solution end to end, partner with travel. So it's going to become really, how do we create these bouquet of offerings that we can go to a corporate client and say, I'll take care of everything for you. And then I'm confident that I don't have to deal with 5 vendors and focus on sanitation, health, protection of my people with 5 different people. So that's going to be one very, very important factor. Another piece that we brought up, and this is something that we've been deliberating. Yes, hotels have vaccinated their own employees, but have they vaccinated families? We're insisting that we have proof of vaccination of family before you can come back to work. So that's an extremely important part for us. And that could be a huge marketing fact saying that not only are our people vaccinated, but their families are vaccinated. Hence, you are safe when your person comes here. Safety, security, risk assessment of any property now is going to be heightened to a X by 100 degree. Our risk guys are going out there and they're limiting the options. Previously, there were a lot of options that you could go to. A traveler had the choice. We're going to limit that down now. So it's going to become even more important to say, if I'm going out there and signing up a deal, I have everything to throw at you saying complete safety and security for your people.
That's great insight, Janine. I think you bring some very strong and relevant points out there. Shailendra, we'll hear from you, and then we've got a question in the chat box before we go into closing statements. Shailendra.
Sure. In fact, what Janine says, I agree with her. There is going to be a lot more, checks and balances. That's the way I would like to put it, by every traveler organization in the interest of the employee safety and life. Life comes first for everybody, and respectfully so. Everybody, nobody wants to lose anybody. At least, you know, in the pandemic, when we very well know what are the cautions or precautions we need to take as individuals and as organizations. However, you know, the the global firms, or the much more, the companies who are very focused on on their own employee safety and their family safety, it will play a very big role, and it sends a very strong message to the traveler community, saying that we care for you, not only for us. It's a two-way street, right? So I think there's a lot of positive outcomes in the last 2 quarters. Even though the vaccine is out, I still believe that these this is going to be a continuous process, in terms of hygiene checks, or various forms of hygiene checks for people, right, while traveling, after traveling. In fact, just a small experience I'd like to share. So I feel like I visited Dubai about 10 days ago, and that was an experience, right? First global trip, I mean international trip, after 18 months of being grounded, right? So I had to do 5 RT-PCR tests between India, Dubai 3, and Dubai, India 2. So, when I was, so Dubai or UAE is so particular that they made sure that you had a test at the diagnostic center in the city, one at the airport, and one while you arrived. But on the way back, I mean, it's ironical, but I had to take a test at the suburban, or whatever, the diagnostic center at Dubai. And in Mumbai, also I had to take a test. But I felt the test at the Mumbai was more of a scam rather than a real test, right? Somewhere things are out of hands as well. But countries or people or institutes or organizations who are really particular about people, incoming and outgoing people who are well, who are safe and secured, those are going to have a vertical growth versus people who are not doing that. So I guess, yes, this is how we all have to live the new normal, but it's in the interest of everybody's life. That's it, Nasir. Thanks.
Thank you, Shailendra. And it's so important that, with the point that you bring out there about being diligent about it, not doing anything for the sake of it is so critical. Means, I think we will be inviting a pandemic if we just do things for the sake of doing it. And we have to be very, very careful. We've got we've got one question in the chat box, and it says, "Hello, dear respected panel members. My question is that there are so many small and medium-sized hotels facing financial issues in the pandemic. They're not able to pay their employees' salaries, and because of not getting paid, employees leave the organization. This is one problem there, and there are so many more. I want to know the solution of this problem, how they start again." Parth, while we will not be able to give you a solution out here, but I'm sure there are a couple of thoughts that you can get. I think Elton's put up his finger, so Elton, was that an indication to answer that?
Oh, Nasser, I was just exercising my hands. But if you want me to,
No. I'll kind
to,
of give it to any of the panelists. I thought the
I'll
finger
be more
movement
than
was that, give it to me, give it to me.
more than happy. First of all, thank you for writing a question which is actually extremely relevant, and I encourage more people to put questions here, because very often we have questions inside our hearts and we take it to our grave. So please raise your hand, please ask questions. There's a panel here, expert, all except me, who can answer questions, right?
Not at all.
But let's understand this thing. This actually reminds me of a Hindi movie, a Bollywood film, black and white Bollywood film, not the Three Idiots part, okay? But there's a black and white part in Three Idiots also. But this takes me to another zone where we say Atiti Devo Bhava, where this guy brings his friend home, and then the mother goes into the kitchen and she opens one container after another and she sees that they're all empty. Right? All these containers are empty. So, poor thing, what does she do? If there is nothing in the container to feed that friend, yes, Atiti Devo Bhava, definitely, it still stands, it still stays, we still believe in it. But when the jar itself is empty, what do you feed the person? Right? It's a similar case over here, where these small to medium-sized hotel owners, this is their only business. It's their only source of income, right? Now, if that source is taken away from them, to a certain extent, they will be able to, you know, kind of put in their own money, thinking that okay, it will go now, it will change, it will change, it will change. But you've seen this has been going on for 2 years. For all you know, it might last for another year. Correct?
Right.
So just look at other alternatives. You know, there are people I know in Sri Lanka who have lost jobs, who are housekeepers. Today, these guys are standing at petrol pumps and filling petrol just to feed the family. So I think the answer to this is self-sustainability. And you know, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Yes, there are some people who have taken advantage of the situation, but most of these people who have actually done what they have done actually have had no other choice. So figure out your life yourself. You have a family to support. You have a mother to feed or a father to pay for the medication. Take charge. Now is the time to take charge of the situation and pull that leader out of you and bring it out in the open, because that is the only form of survival. Okay, that is my advice. It's not a solution, it's an advice.
Thank you, Alton. I think, and that's so apt and so relevant. Vijayan, if I may ask you to pitch in before we go for closing statements, because I know from knowing you, you've worked across various segments, sectors, and engaged with multiple, and especially from your role as vice president at the Pune Hoteliers Association, you've seen things at a different, from different telescope. Can you talk some thoughts from your end, if you don't mind?
Sure, sure. See, I'll tell you, many of the owners who have invested in the hotel industry, you can classify them into two. Some who are serious about what they're doing, and some who have invested for the sake of investment. I think they're of both separate, and those that who are going to be serious about investment, this as a serious business for them, they will bounce back seriously. Whereas those who have just invested for the sake of investment, you will find them trying to sell. But when they try to sell, it will be bought by people who are serious about business. So in the end, it's going to end up in a positive way only. Because see, when I speak to these owners, what do I see is that what do they say is that this is the right time to invest. So for those who have money, this is the best time to invest, or this is the best time to buy other hotels. And however, the time taken, we are not able to say because of COVID and the restrictions of COVID and the sickness that is coming through. So what I would say is that in the meanwhile, sustainability, like what Elton said, is the only solution to hold us on till the time the situation gets back. But in the end, as we all discussed earlier, we are a resilient market. We are optimistic. If not by these investment-based owners, it will go back to serious owners who really want to do business. I'm sure Megha would say that her company, Brookfield, is looking at grabbing many hotels. See, so they have the fund. So I'm sure you will have many companies like that coming forward to buy. I've seen our owners, some of them wanting to buy hotels too,
True.
asking our opinion. How is this hotel in Goa? How is this hotel in Pune? So it will all end up in a positive way, but the time taken we are not able to exactly describe. So I would say sustainability till that period is very important. There are many who have gone into business or like what he said, different type of job to hold them back till the time the hotel industry opens.
Right. So thank you, Vijayan, for putting in a very important perspective, because it is important to divide them into segments of what kind of thought process they have as investors and owners. With this, we'd like to go into the closing statements. If we can start with Shailendra for your closing thoughts, Shailendra.
Closing thoughts is like, I think we should be all gearing up for a very strong rebound, and we should not underestimate that.
Thank you.
Anybody being pessimistic might be on the wrong, might be caught on the wrong foot. So personally, we are looking, or we as an organization see 150 to 200% over pre-COVID, levels. Also, one point I just want to, bring it here is that organizations those, whether it's travel firms, hotels, any organization which has, especially in the hospitality industry, which has stood by the storm, are those organizations which other organizations who are service seekers are going to give them a huge recognition and value. Whether they talk about it or they don't, in terms of revenues, we'll understand that. So today, the companies who have been washed out, owners who are unable to handle the situation, the weak hands are washed out. So these storms really, put away all the weak hands and let the best man win. So that's the, current position. So I feel that we all have to be ready for a greater 2022 onwards. Just keeping fingers crossed, nothing disrupts unless there's any natural disruption. So there's, the economy, not only the economy, the Indian footprint has to only grow at a very, very fast pace, given the situation where we are. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Shailendra. I think Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest has never been truer. So well said, Shailendra out there. Megha, your thoughts?
So Nasir, I very strongly feel that markets have more or less opened. I think from a sales perspective, we see it just till last evening. We were wining, dining with certain clients, and it started as a small boardroom conversation and saying, let's start inviting our customers back and doing those traditional networking evenings. And to our amazement, in 48 hours, the teams turned around and got almost 20 key CEO, CXO relationships who we wined and dined with. And that was a very strong indicator of the fact that as much as we want travel to return, they too are equally desperate to want to step out, to want to network like never before. So the one word that I would leave, and especially for those who, I think all of us in hospitality are very entrenched in building relationships, but one of the major catalysts that can help us speed up this bounce back, over and above obviously the vaccination count and it moving and growing, is heightening our engagement with the customers. It's important to keep that going, to obviously stay at top of mind recall. And I think I'll just once again reiterate, digitalization has never been as important as today from a marketing perspective. And if I was to go back to previous questions as well, future curriculums, I think social, digital, Google Analytics, all of these build in capabilities within us as hoteliers to, those days are gone now where we had to look back at historic trends to drive future. It is now more because history has kind of wiped itself over the past 2 years. It'll be stupid for us to look at 2020, 2021 to say, okay, what's going to happen in 2022, 2023? But what is important is to start seeing all forward booking pace. And that intel is heavily dependent on how savvy we are digitally. So get back to customers, because customers are really wanting to meet us and see us, and markets have opened, and invest your intellectual capabilities and build your intellectual capacities in the digital space, because that will determine future, that will help us read trends better, that will help us prepare ourselves better for the future that's going to lie ahead. Those would be my two takeaways.
And I would say true that, Megha, we as an organization through our multiple corporates have started doing events outside and doing them in person. But even all the CEOs and senior leaders that I meet on the golf course, one thing that they're very up about is they're opening offices. People are coming in, and when I speak to people who handle travel, they're talking about now 30% of the workforce is coming in September itself. With October, they're looking at around 60% coming in, and I think if everything goes well, come December, Jan, you've got 100% workforce coming in and corporate travel. The next panel discussion we are actually doing in October is we're going to get key business leaders who actually influence travel in their corporates as a panel together to share their thoughts, and we'll definitely keep you updated on it. But that's very important. I think the markets have opened up. People want to see us. People want to talk to us, get to know us out there. Elton, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, Nasir, first of all, thanks for organizing this. I think this is something which is just the beginning of many more discussions to come. So thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I'm honored. The way I treat this, and closing kind of a statement. I don't know, Nasir, if you remember the New Year parties at the JW Marriott Mumbai. And this I'm talking like 2002, 2003, crazy parties. We had 3,500 people in the building. correct?
And 16,000 rupees ahead.
1,000 drunk people.
Yeah, who would have imagined? But my point here is that as and that time I was a chef, and what I used to tell my team is the first thing is the pre-preparation. Make sure you do not run out of food. All the grits, blue to garnish, the ice, whatever we used to do, great, but don't run out of food. So if you compare that situation to a pandemic, now we know what really can happen, right? So be prepared in advance. Don't take things for granted. The second part is, and this also answers to that kid's question or that grown-up, whoever that person put that question out there, is the survival aspect. So we as a team had to survive till 12 o'clock. Once Happy New Year was said, then we know that even everyone, the guests are happy, we are happy, everyone is happy, and kind of, takes
Winds
a,
down. Yeah.
yeah, it kind of, Indra also obviously played a big role in those days. And finally, the breakfast customers, if we don't clean up on time, if we
Tell me
don't
about
set up the place, I mean, for somebody coming at 6 a.m. in the morning, they would have never imagined that this place was a party
Mess
zone
till 4.
2 hours before. The
Yeah.
last customer should walk out at 4 o'clock. So if you're not prepared for your customer at 6 o'clock, and which basically talks about us being prepared for the business to come in. This is the post preparation. So it's just 3 steps to it. One is, and if you want to go at PSP, your PSP,
PlayStation.
PlayStation Portable, answer. PlayStation Portable, right? So the pre-preparedness, the survival part, and the post-preparedness. That's it. That's all I would like to say. And again, thank you everyone for this wonderful opportunity. I really thoroughly enjoyed myself.
And thank you, Elton, for bringing in real fond memories of those New Year parties. It
I
just
think the next discussions will not be so Marriott based. Maybe you'll uh,
Amit,
because
your thoughts, please.
No, I think everyone has already touched on the point. There are two major points. Is first, be prepared because the floodgates are going to open. I'm going to use this term, the floodgates. Everyone is wanting to travel. Everyone has been restricted and kind of bound for almost 18-20 months. So people are going to travel with a vengeance. Tourism, people, there's going to a new segment of tourism come up, which will be called vengeance tourism. People just want to get out, so that is going to happen. So be prepared because the floodgates are going to open up. And if you're not prepared, then you're caught on the wrong side. And secondly, as Megha rightly said, do not depend on the historical data. This is going to be a completely new scenario. Take it as it comes. Be agile, be nimble. Make yourself approach each and everything with a very open mind, and take it head on. That's when you will actually cash on the real opportunity which is knocking on our doors.
Thank you, Amit. And yeah, I guess it's going to be a lot of flooding that's going to happen with customers. And with fingers crossed, I'm waiting for that day, where restaurants are full, rooms are not there, and we keep on hearing about sold out dates. I think that's something that we all are looking at, and especially my students who are going to kind of be the first intake next year coming in. They're excited because that their careers will be flooded with offers. So thank you for bringing that good news out there. Vijayan, your thoughts, please, on.
Yeah, I would like to add on to what Megha said. From one side of it, of course, the customers want to go out in due course. Everybody's waiting to move. But the other side of it, I would like the hotel industry also to understand they also have the responsibility of getting prepared and reaching out to these customers. So if there are a million people waiting to move, it is not that they distribute themselves to everybody. So it is how strong we are in reaching out to them is going to be the key aspect, and how we are going to sustain their arrival is going to be the key, another key aspect. So till now, sales and marketing team has been doing a fantastic job trying to reach out, even though the business has been very dull. But still, if you see over the time with the business picking up and due course the ADR will also pick up, you will see the expectations the customers are going to go higher than what it was much before COVID. Like what Megha said, Right now, we are seeing a different segment of marketing using the five-star hotels. In due course, you will see the real market coming back to these hotels, and then the expectations are going to be much better than what they were getting before. So the operation team have got a very important role to getting themselves ready for this influx of business into their portfolio, and they have to, they themselves have gone through a trauma, so they have to get themselves out of the
Awesome.
trauma, back to normalcy, and then be able to sustain this business growth. So I think that is going to be a key factor for the future. Thank you once again, Nasir, for inviting me in this beautiful panel, and I really cherish this meeting of ours.
Thank you, Bijan, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of it at just a question. So thank you. God bless you for that. Indranil, your closing thoughts, please.
Okay, so again, thank you, Nasir and Team Lexicon, for arranging this event. It's been fun. A lot has been said, and I'm so happy being an Indian who is not there. I'm based outside of India. I'm taking so much positivity back from this discussion. I think the sentiment is so positive back in India. People are actually saying the floodgates are open, which is so nice to hear. I'm so happy, and I'm just wishing you guys all the very best. I'm sure things are going to be great once again. And I wish you all the very best. I wish you luck and I wish you success. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed our
Thank you.
discussion today. Fantastic.
Thank you, Indranil. Janine, your thoughts, the last but not the least, definitely not the
My
least.
last thoughts, I'm going to hijack your question, Nasir. I think we've spent a good hour and a half talking about, from various experienced professionals that the business and industry will come back. I'm going to address my last thoughts to the potential young students who are out there. If any of you, those who've decided you're going to pursue the course with Lexicon Mile and, or with any other hospitality school, great guns, go for it. Those of you who are sitting on the fence, there are a lot who I'm sure parents are telling them the industry is too sensitive, do not join hospitality, it's too volatile. I can tell you one thing, every industry is volatile. If you want to be part of an industry that is going to allow you to be creative, think on your feet, think as a business leader, think from your heart, hospitality is there for you. And we're thankful for places like Lexicon Mile that is actually investing so much to figure out what their curriculum should be. I remember years and years ago when we were talking with IHM colleges, it said, listen to the industry, bring industry into your curriculum. So I'm glad that you're doing that. And I'm glad you've given us this opportunity here to not only listen to the positive views and feel positive back again, but to spread this positivity to the larger audience, which is the young youth that are going to make this business and industry what it is for the future. The industry is going to bounce back, guys. It is going to come back with a bang. You're going to be the lucky ones who will be able to reap the benefit of that. So sincerely, from my heart, I love hospitality, and it really was tough for me to decide to leave. But I can only say it is a place where you can flourish as a person. Your individuality comes out. Your business acumen comes out. So if it is a thought and a question mark also, just feel free to reach out to any one of these guys on the panel and say, am I making the right choice? And you will get a resounding yes, because it's a fantastic career to choose. And this industry will 100% bounce back and bounce back for the better.
Thank you, Janine, and thank you so much to each of you, Indranil, Janine, Shailendra, Megha, Amit, Vijayan, and Elton. Thank you for sparing your time. I know how valuable every minute of yours is, and for you to take out this time, and I apologize for overshooting on the time. It's just phenomenal. I think what you add back and what you give as knowledge is something that every one of the attendees will cherish and will take forward and grow. Elton gave us a couple of models. He gave Solar, he gave us PSP. I'm going to leave you with Sage. Sage is speed. I think, it's not the big that eat the small, but fast that eat the slow. So that's something that I think we should always keep in mind. A for being adaptive and being agile. I think that's very, very important. And it's not pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, or during the pandemic. I think it's anytime out there. G is growth. I think we have to have a growth mindset. We cannot look at a glass as half full or half empty. I think we have to look at the glass as refillable. We have to know that the resources are there. We need to keep on filling that glass back. And last but not the least, educate. I think it's important to educate the customer. It's important to educate the team, our families, and ourselves. And you will see Sage really working for us. Shailendra, I missed you out on my thank you. A sincere thanks, Shailendra. I know you were traveling, and even in your travels, you chose to come in. God bless you, and God bless each of you for making this happen. The Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management thanks you, and will continuously reach out to you for your support and guidance as we build a hotel school for hoteliers by hoteliers. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you, Nasir, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Nasir.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.